Amazing news, South Park The Stick of Truth is the best licensed game ever. That's a big call, but that's what we're saying. Not only is it disgusting, as you'd expect, weirdly, it's not as offensive as games like Call of Duty and the infamous No Russian moment. Why is that? Well, I'll be asking that question to Matt Elliott, who's reviewed the game for CVG, and I'm Dan Dawkins for CVG. Matt, why is it the best licensed game ever?
I think I've never played anything else that makes better use of a license, and just the sheer amount of stuff that it crams into a game. If you have any sort of even passing interest in South Park, almost every single joke is in here, and it's not like, it doesn't feel like any of it is wasted. Every single sort of reference that it uses in quite a clever way, and it's sort of relentlessly disgusting. But even compared to something like Arkham City, which is full of references for people that love the comics, I think this maybe uses them a little bit better. Perhaps not as good a game mechanically, but I think it's an incredibly good use of a license.
So it embraces everything a South Park game could be. It's been, I guess it's like the involvement of Matt Stone and Trey Parker is more than cosmetic. They've been like really bound in with it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the intention was from the start to make it essentially into a continuation of the show, and that's exactly what it feels like. I've said to a few people, it sort of feels like you're wandering around on the set of South Park, if that was a thing that was even possible. Like, there's no sort of divide between game and TV show, because it looks exactly like the cartoon. Like, and sort of as shonky as the cartoon looks, I think it's quite a difficult thing to create with any kind of accuracy, and this does it flawlessly. And the fact that you're kind of an outsider character, you're like the silent protagonist, that all works in the game's favour, in that you feel like you're coming into a show that's reacting to you as a complete outsider. It works really, really well.
I think for me it's the first time. We've always in the past we've said, hey, the new Simpsons game looks just like the cartoon, or the Futurama game looks just like the cartoon, but it doesn't actually look like the cartoon.
Yeah.
With this is like a facsimile. It's absolutely perfect and bang on. Now, like structurally, what can people expect from this game?
It's like a hardcore RPG, really, in cartoon clothes. So it's made by Obsidian, who are kind of perhaps not too unfairly well known for making kind of middling sequels to big RPG games. Secret Neverwinter Nights 2, Knights of the Old Republic 2. So they kind of know their stuff in terms of turn-based RPG combat. And if you were to sort of take the South Park sheen off this and replace it with orcs and swords and elves, people probably wouldn't even notice, because it's all about timing. It's about using the right classes and sort of elemental magic to exploit enemy weaknesses and things like that. And it's a system over the course of sort of 12 hours. Doesn't get boring at all, and as you get further in, it mixes things in that will let you sort of do environmental attacks that will take enemies out before you fight them. So it's constantly mixing things up so you don't feel like you're grinding, and occasionally you will have a big boss battle that will take you 10 minutes to complete. But yeah, I mean, for all its sort of poo jokes and Facebook references and things like that, it is, underneath all of that, quite a solid RPG, which is surprising.
How long would it take, like, the average player to finish the main story, and like what scope is there for expanding your abilities in replay?
Oh, there's massive scope for expanding your abilities, and I think it's designed to push you off on tangents as you go through the main quest. So it probably took me about 12 hours to complete, but that was with doing quite a few side quests and things like that. So if you really set your mind to it and burn through it, you could probably get do the whole thing in maybe 8 hours. But it doesn't really feel like that's the sort of way it should be played. You know, it's giving you all these things. It's quite nicely designed in a way that there's not too much busy work, in that it'll give you a quest, and the place you're supposed to go will generally be quite near to where you are, and there's fast travel as well. But it's done, as with everything in the game, in a really sort of South Park on-brand way, in that it's Timmy sort of zipping you around in his wheelchair. So yeah, I mean, it's not a hugely long game for an RPG. It's not like sort of a Dragon Age 60 hours RPG, but it's really, really dense. Like, from start to finish, you're just bouncing from one reference to the other, and the sheer amount of variety it throws at you along the way, without wishing to sort of mention anything specifically and spoil anything, it does a lot of different stuff. And it's got a bit of kind of a Metroid sort of gear gating sort of spin to it, in that there's certain areas you can only get to when you've upgraded your character. So in the same way that Lego does as well, you kind of go back and you unlock things.
So when you finish the game, there is scope to re-explore and to see new things?
I think so. I think the jokes will be lost second time around, quite obviously, but there's a few times when your allegiances will switch and things like that, so you can go back and see different sort of elements of that. And also, one of the things I found is that I was just always really excited to see how characters reacted to what I did, and you have a different buddy with you the entire time.
Right.
So, if you're going into someone's bedroom and smashing up their stuff, then if you're with Butters, he'll be a little bit disappointed in you, and then if you're with Cartman, he'll probably find it hilarious. So, all the time you're switching stuff up to see how people react.
Now, we talked about up top the game being disgusting. Without spoiling it too much, can you talk about the kind of things that people might find offensive, even if you can talk around it? And it was interesting you said to me off air, why isn't that then as offensive as it could be, given how disgusting the actual things you've described to me?
I think it's mainly because it doesn't feel like it's just there for the sake of it. It's a licensed game, and it's only doing stuff that's in the show. And there's stuff in the show that's probably worse than this. Being European, we've lost some of the interactive scenes that were particularly harrowing, I think. So maybe it doesn't feel quite so bad because of that. But it's difficult to go into specifics without spoiling anything. But if you can think of some of the most disgusting things imaginable, they're likely to be in this game. We're talking sort of abortion clinics and Nazis and anal probing and things like that. And you can sort of see why it's censored. But yeah, it's absolutely not for the faint of heart. But then I think the key thing is it's obviously only for people that really like the show. And if you have no interest in South Park, what you're left with is a serviceable RPG full of jokes that you'll probably find quite offensive.
But you could find it funny, I'm guessing, even if you didn't really know the characters.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it is funny, in a way that we sort of often. You give games a little bit of slack sometimes, saying they're funny when perhaps they're not quite as amusing as we think they are. But this is funny.
So yeah, we've obviously rated it really highly. Are there any downsides worth mentioning?
It's exceedingly laggy on the PS3 and sort of the open areas, which I'm assuming some patches will fix. There is a day one patch planned. Combat can get a little bit repetitive, especially when the specials can be quite long-winded and you're sort of required to do certain button presses and things like that. So occasionally you'll find yourself seeing the same thing over and over again and being sort of slightly tired by it. But generally, I think mechanically is probably the only downside to it. There's that's the side that may become a little bit tiresome. But in terms of story and content and the way that it keeps throwing new stuff at you, I think there's enough there to keep most people entertained. And certainly anyone that loves South Park will find a lot in here that they even forgotten that they'd seen before and they loved.
Well, South Park's out now on PS3, 360 and PC. If you're interested in the game and haven't picked it up yet, we'll be running lots of videos on the site, so please do subscribe right now. We'll be flagging everything with spoilers, because everyone's always really worried about spoilers. Trust me, some of the stuff is a spoiler, and it's also pretty scintillating. So yeah, thanks for listening. Till the next time, cheerio.